This is The Sports Life.
Grant bothers Gale. Looking in. Fires Wolf on the right wing. Splits two. Over to Burnett. Left wing, a three for the win. Go! 3 days after his worst game of the year, Damari Burnett walks off with a Michigan winner on a 25-foot splash here at the pool party at Chrysler.
Oh, Brian Bush, the voice of the Wolverines. A little jacked up on that one. It was a big shot and a big win for the home team Wolverines against Rutgers. Well, welcome into the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, we have a pretty good show lined up for you this week. Pretty basketball heavy. And one of the fun parts of the show, we're going to catch up with Chris Solari, veteran writer from the Detroit Free Press. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our first crack at Coach of the Year, first team, things like that.
Absolutely. That should be a lot of fun to get to. But also, this men's basketball regular season is going to end with a bang, you assume, from the Breslin Center. Michigan State and Michigan, two of the very best teams in this Big Ten Conference. We're going to be talking with Matt Steigenga and Terry Mills about what makes this rivalry so special. We're also going to be throwing back to some of the moments that have decided championships in the Big Ten in the past, given a focus around this rivalry.
It's interesting. I have said to Dalton that I thought it would be very hard for the new members to win a Big Ten title in men's basketball because of the travel.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to put a caveat on that one. It's really hard to do it because of the travel unless you're as good as a women's team at USC and UCLA. Then you can do it.
They are really good, and USC ends up winning the Battle of LA and the Battle of the Big Ten this previous weekend. Juju Watkins with another 30-point performance to win the Big Ten title. Just simply amazing. And USC head coach Lindsey Gottlieb was interviewed after the game by the broadcast Fox about what winning this Big Ten championship meant to the Trojans.
Really have become a team. I know a lot of people were down on us when we lost a tough game to Notre Dame, and I'm so proud of how a group just sort of didn't listen to the scrutiny and decided to look inward and get better. And how about the team effort? I mean, we got contributions from everybody, from our freshmen to our seniors. I thought Rhea played like the leader that she is. Juju was spectacular. Kiki's second half, to be able to stay focused after the foul trouble. Our freshman age, everyone was really good. Malia Samuels coming off the bench. We've become a team, and that's really special.
And they did it the hard way. They beat UCLA twice.
Yeah.
You get to be champs when you do that.
It simply is amazing, and they're playing some of their best basketball now as they head into postseason play. Certainly going to be a lot of fun to watch the Trojans. In hockey, the regular season title was actually split between Michigan State and Minnesota for the Big Ten championship. Now, heading into the final weekend, Michigan State needed some help to get it done. Penn State helped the Spartans with a overtime win over Minnesota in the first game of that weekend series. So Michigan State now, with that help, ends up sharing and going back-to-back as Big Ten regular season champions. And head coach Adam Nightingale talked a little bit about what it meant over the weekend with the sound coming courtesy of WLNS.
Obviously, guys, we're super proud of the guys, and but we want to keep playing hockey, right? And I think that I do think that's an unbelievable accomplishment. But we feel like we got a lot of hockey left in us, and we still got to go out there and prove it. But this team's done a heck of a job. We got a chance. We won the GLI. There's a trophy between us and Minnesota, which I didn't even know existed because we hadn't won it in so long. And we got that one. We won the duel in the D, and now we got this one. So we got an opportunity to play for two more of them.
Well, that's kind of funny. There's a trophy?
Thought we just won the game, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't know we got a trophy. That's pretty good. But Adam Nightingale has just done a fabulous job in a short amount of time. He's in his third season, 2 Big Ten titles, not bad.
That's amazing, really, when you think about it, and really has resurged the Michigan State hockey program. The last sound of the week we're going to go to, it's kind of our tradition at this point on the Sports Life that Matt Painter talks into a microphone. We play that as part of the sounds of the week. And Matt Painter had another classic moment this past week where a couple of media personalities were talking with him a little bit about trying to get into the weeds of what was going on in the game recently, and Matt Painter really opened up the coach's office and showed them everything that was happening, and some of this jargon. See if you can keep up with Matt Painter.
So we played out of we have a name for it, it's not important. When they went to like their chin action where they cut through, which they don't do a lot of, When they did that, we just tried to hold that guy there. So when he came off the ball screen, we just dropped, and then we switched it up top. So when they went into their flat ball screen up top, we wanted to weak it and send it to their weak hand. And then when they were going to go Spain, are you speaking my language? Okay. And when they wanted to go Spain, right there, we just brought our guy up and switched it up top, and then we dropped our 5. But we wanted to make sure the 5 greeted the 5 diving, so he wasn't getting a deep post up at time. That's why you saw Bilodeau get that kind of a 10-foot right there. He can make that, and we wanted to have an early hand with him right there. But we just didn't want Andrews and Sebastian Mack attacking Trey. We wanted to keep that out of there. They exited. They sent it the other side in the second half a couple times, so we had to stay right there, then drop out of it. You saw them snake it a couple times and get us. And that if they would have stayed the same side, we'd have been fine in our drop. But when they snaked it, we dropped back like we were going to go Spain. And now that created the space to be able to to be able to snake. So then we switched at the end of the game and told him to touch his shoulder. And when he exited out of it, we would still stay with it like we did, because you just can't ignore that when he goes to the other side. So when we weak it, we keep it to that side. Okay? So now we come up into it that way. Well, he exits the other way. Now we told that other guy to hold in cover 2 to play that if he went and took it. So he took it and they went out of it. Our guy in cover 2, you got to come high in cover 2 and force him to throw it to the corner, because that's why you see all those wing to corner 1-mores. You got to eliminate it, so they got to 1-more and invert it, but throw it to the corner. But when you throw it to the corner, that's hopefully more time. Then you X out of that in your rotation, then everybody has to come over to it. So then once we got to that and we knew the exit, so we called off what we were doing, and then we played it flat, but we touched his shoulder to take the space so they wouldn't get that. Make sense? Well, you guys cover the damn sport. I mean, he said he was speaking my language. Yeah.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I really liked though when he threw in the cover 2. What is he? Is he want to be a football coach or what?
That's awesome.
Anyway, that was so much fun. Matt Painter having a little fun with the media. Well, when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the best performers this year on the men's side of Big Ten basketball. It's all coming up right after this.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you
doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, it's that time of year when you take a look at the Big Ten basketball men's regular season as it's just about wrapping up. And joining us to kind of reflect a little bit on it is Chris Solari from the Detroit Free Press, and he's been covering Big Ten hoops for over a couple decades now. And Chris, welcome to the show. And I thought maybe the first thing the three of us could talk about was the awards individually that are going to be given out officially soon. But Chris, if you were going to pick the Big Ten men's basketball coach of the year, who would get it?
You know, that's a really tough one, I think, because I think you look right now at what Tom Izzo has done at Michigan State, and it's been a masterful redevelopment of his program in a year. But that said, Dusty May at Michigan comes in fresh and completely turns that program around too. So I do think it's going to be between those two guys. But to me, I just think the job that Izzo has done in really doing it without stars and without doing it with many transfers and really the transfers that he brought in aren't per se the nucleus of that squad. I think I'd probably lean towards Izzo on this one, but that's not a discredit or disservice to Dusty May, because I do think that he's done a phenomenal job. I think the same could be said for Mick Cronin too. The job that Mick Cronin did mid-season to kind of turn that around at UCLA, I think he should get a little bit of consideration, but I don't think the way that the season played out that it's gonna bear fruit for him at the end.
That feels like a really fair way to kind of encapsulate what this Coach of the Year race is. And my question to you, Chris, is what about National Coach of the Year prospects between those two? Because given what Tom Izzo's done, and you're talking about a team that just went through a run that nobody else in the country can really pound their chest about as well, maybe Tom Izzo has potential for National Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, he's got some real tough sledding there, I think, on the national scope with some of the guys that are out there. Like obviously, Auburn and Duke have been great. Houston's been great. I think you look at Tennessee as well. I mean, the SEC has been so strong this year that I don't think that discounts the job that Izzo has done. I just think that when you look at national voters, they're probably going to lean towards one of the coaches in the SEC based on the strength of the league this year. That said, he's going to be in consideration. I don't think there's any question about that. And I'm sure that there's going to be votes for him, whether he gets enough. And it might be a case, too, where you split the votes with all the SEC schools. And some of those guys that have done such a good job kind of get some fractured voting, and maybe Izzo can sneak in on it.
Well, it's interesting. 30 years as a head coach at Michigan State. 8 times he's been the National Coach of the Year. 3 times. 3. He's been the Big Ten Coach of the Year. Okay, having said that, let's move on now to our first team selections. In the Big Ten balloting, it's not by position, it's just 5 guys. 5 best players. So, Chris, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I think that's the full scope of the season that John Tonje's had. That puts him right there in that mix. I think you have to look at Braden Smith and the job that he's done at Purdue, because the guy absolutely logs almost every minute that is there. It's kind of, you're starting to see, you've seen him wear down at times, and I think he had a couple 6 turnover games in there, but I don't know if there's many more important pieces to a team. And obviously he runs with Trey Kaufman-Renn, who I think is going to be in that mix as well. From a pure scoring standpoint, you got Bryce Williams leading the conference and Nick Martinelli right behind him, but you got to wonder about the team's situation and success at that point. And I think, you look at Vlad Golden at Michigan, I think he's played phenomenal basketball. I think that Danny Wolf as well has played phenomenal basketball. To me, those guys are all up there in that contention. And I think Dawson Garcia too. He's just been such a dynamic player for the Gophers. And listen, that was a program that early on didn't look like they were. They looked like they were going to be out of contention for the Big Ten tournament at the end of January, and they really turned it around. So I think he's got to be in that mix as well.
Well, Chris, let's stay with that upper echelon, that tier that you're going through. If I tried to press you for Big Ten Player of the Year, I imagine this is something that's been pivoting back and forth for several voters for the last couple of weeks. Where do you lean right now?
Yeah, and it's also one of those years, too, where, with Michigan State leading the race in Big Ten, you'd look at that team, and the Spartans are not a star-dominated team. It is an across-the-board. We haven't seen that from one of Izzo's teams. But more importantly, I don't know how many times we've seen that in the conference where you've got 10 guys doing the bulk of the damage. So when you've got the conference leader and potential conference champion that doesn't have the guy, well, then how do you kind of lean towards the Player of the Year voting? I'd probably have to look at Tanjay, because I just think that he's added a different dynamic to Wisconsin, and you look at them being in that race deep into the season. I think that to me, he would be, if you ask me, I think he would be my candidate. I think Braden Smith would be right there because he does so many things. And again, like I said, if we're talking what the ultimate value is that they can't take him off the floor. He's that critical for Purdue. So I think those two will probably be right there in the mix. And, again, like we mentioned with Izzo, did Danny Wolf or Vlad Golden split their own votes? I think that kind of keeps them from getting in that mix as well. So, Kaufman-Renn has been important for Purdue as well. So let's not discount him. But I think, to me, Tanjay would be the guy.
It's interesting, though, and you brought this up, Chris, and Dalton, jump in on this. Can any of you two, and I can't ever remember, where there's been a team that could be the champion and wouldn't have one player on the first team? Not one.
The question is, are they going to have a player on the second team even? It's just been so bad. And it's not that they aren't playing at a high level. I think Jaden Akins has a very good case to be Defensive Player of the Year. And I would not be shocked if he gets it. But do they have a guy that you can just say, oh, yeah, this is the guy that should be on the second team? Just based on pure numbers, not really. But the pure numbers that they put together are more team-based. And it kind of speaks volumes to not just the makeup of the roster, but the mindset of the players, which is, a fascinating to go 10 deep and to have guys that are scoring 18 different games where all 10 guys have scored, and they in those rotation regulars. They're averaging pretty much all over between 10 and 22 minutes or somewhere in that range. So I don't know if we've seen a group quite like that at the Big Ten level. And it's been changed for Tom Izzo, too. I think that's been kind of a fascinating watch to see him evolve in his coaching with this group.
You guys should know I did ask Coach Izzo about that. You could be champion without a first-team player. He looked at me and he said, do we hang banners for first-team players?
Yeah. darn good point that I think speaks volumes to the 30 years that he's put in.
Okay, what do we think about freshman of the year?
Gosh, you asked me all the tough questions here today. I don't know. I mean, I think, I think that again, we talk about both the Michigan guys and the Player of the Year rankings, and some of the other awards for first team, and I wonder, and same with Coach of the Year. I think that what's going to be interesting is the Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey battle at Rutgers. I mean, both those guys have been dynamic, but to me, probably and I think Jace Richardson, his late surge has really put him in that mix where, if there is a star for Michigan State, that's the guy you kind of look at and point to with the job he's done since moving into the starting lineup in the back half of this Big Ten season. But I think Derek Queen has just been so overwhelmingly good throughout the course of the year. And he's such a big presence in the paint. You see the moves that he makes, and it's next level stuff that we'll probably be seeing at the next level by this time next year. So I do think that I think I would probably go with Derek Queen. Again, not discounting the job that those other guys have done, because I think it's been one of the best freshman classes in recent memory that I can think of with the Big Ten.
Okay, Chris, we just got a little time left. Biggest surprise this season for you, good or bad?
The biggest surprise this year for me, good or bad, I'd probably, Michigan State is right there, because I think a lot of people had counted Tom Izzo out, and some of them put him out to pasture, which is funny because I asked him the other day if he plans to coach till he's 90, and he had kind of dropped some hints about that. He said maybe. But I think the reinvention of Tom Izzo, which he's done over the time, has been one of the big surprises positively. Same with Dusty May at Michigan, the impact he made right away. I think Greg Gard as well. I mean, I kind of feel bad that I didn't put Greg Gard in that Coach of the Year mix as well, because he's done a great job at Wisconsin, in turning that around. I think some of the negatives, if you want to call them that, obviously, the beginning of the year, we thought Oregon and Indiana were going to be the bee's knees, right? They were going to be the leaders in the clubhouse heading into the Big Ten tournament, and they fought on Tuesday night. They played a game that was relatively meaningless when it comes to anything but seeding, and they both are in that 9 to 11 win range in the conference standings. So it shows just how unpredictable this year has been, and kind of the same with UCLA. Some of the most talented teams in the conference didn't necessarily live up to the expectations. I think that's how I would kind of put maybe the negative side of the surprise.
Well, Chris Solari of the Detroit Free Press, always good talking to you. It's going to be fun to see how all this plays out.
We'll be in Indy very soon to kind of see it shake up.
Chris Solari from the Detroit Free Press. Well, coming up next on the Sports Life, we're going to take a look at one of the great rivalries of college basketball. It's Michigan and Michigan State. It's all coming up in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners make sense for you. Well, we're having some fun here talking some Big Ten hoops. And this weekend, Sunday, the last day of the regular season, in East Lansing, it's Michigan State hosting Michigan. And that has been a great basketball rivalry. So we thought today we might salute it.
Because honestly, this rivalry not only does it mean a lot to both Michigan State and Michigan, it's determined who wins the Big Ten at times in the last handful of plus years. Let's go back to 2019. The season ended the same way. It was Michigan State and Michigan in East Lansing, the final day of the regular season. Now, Purdue had already clinched a share of the Big Ten title, but both Michigan State and Michigan were in contention. Whoever won was going to share the Big Ten with the Purdue Boilermakers. It ended up being Michigan State, and what was a classic of a moment in this rivalry for the green and white.
And now they extend the defense, Michigan does. Kenny Goins has the basketball. It's 71-61, a 10-point game, 1:24 to go. Cash is dribbling around. They're bumping him, they're knocking him around. No whistle, that's hard to believe. He's still dribbling. Finally gives up the dribble, and he goes down low to McQuaid for his slam dunk. They were so busy beating up Cassius Winston, they forgot about Matt McQuaid.
The senior Matt McQuaid, how about that?
And that's it, folks, that's it. Michigan State is repeating as Big Ten champions despite all the obstacles. MSU on the last game of the regular season welcomes in its rival Michigan and wins it, and wins a Big Ten championship, the final. Michigan State 75, Michigan 63. What a great day to be a Spartan. What a great day to be in East Lansing, Michigan.
Another banner in the sky, man. Another banner.
Another banner, Dalton, in case you didn't get it. But at the end of the day, what has Tom Izzo always talked about? Championships, banners. There, that was one.
It was an amazing moment, especially in this rivalry's history, because the other part of this, too, is that was first or second week of March in the calendar in 2019. late February 24th, Michigan State went to Michigan, got that win. So that was win number 1. The one you just heard was win number 2. And win number 3 was a classic from the Windy City in Chicago, the Big Ten tournament championship game on St. Patrick's Day. With the river being green, everything was green and white because Michigan State would complete the hat trick against the Wolverines with this victory.
And Poole goes down low, but the ball is taken away by Henry. We're on the other way. It's a 2-on-2 deal. Henry up, slams it home.
Oh, Aaron Henry.
Hello.
Man.
Cassius takes a deep breath, walks it up. Dribbles around. He leads Tillman, and Tillman's off the glass. We are tied. We are tied at 60.
What a great move by Xavier Tillman. Under control, showed a lot of composure.
15 on the shot clock. Cash still out there. Xavier Simpson doesn't want to get picked. He breaks to the basket. Bank shot up. It's in! It's in! With 29 seconds to go, Michigan State is taking the lead.
And we'll see Michigan.
Cassius Winston, that went right at 7-1 John Teskey.
You know, he's the player of the year, and what a move he made.
Well, it's a final here from Chicago as Michigan State comes back to beat Michigan 65-60 to win its 6th Big Ten Tournament championship. That's record-setting. And it's also record-setting to knock off Michigan twice in 2 title games. It was interesting, Dalton, in both of those games for Michigan State, they had to come from behind to get the win.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, just adds to the drama that was that season for Michigan State, where it eventually would land them in the Final Four in Minneapolis. But Michigan has had their fair share of moments, too. Let's go back to the COVID year. As bizarre as this feels, that was 4 or 5 years ago. But in 2021, Michigan won the Big Ten regular season championship under Juwan Howard, and they did it by hosting the Michigan State Spartans. Now, obviously, this doesn't have quite the same fanfare in the background because it was empty seats, but nonetheless, the Wolverines had a moment, and let's go to it with the voice of the Michigan Wolverines, Brian Bush.
And the final seconds will dwindle off the clock. For the 15th time, Michigan wins the Big Ten regular season championship, and none of the previous 14 had to go through what this team has endured. They've done it all in this Big Ten, one of the best leagues ever. The Wolverines storm onto the floor. They're going to cut down some nets tonight. They're going to hang a banner as the confetti falls. Michigan clinches a Big Ten regular season crown.
Wow. You know, it's hard, man. It's so hard to win the championship. I remember as a player how hard it was. And we tried and we failed 3 years. I'll never forget our junior year when we had a chance to close it versus Purdue, and we failed. Then we went over to Northwestern and lost in overtime. You know, that taste, you know, obviously, you know, I remember it still left a bad taste in my mouth, but now to get an opportunity to win it with the players that, of course, believed in the vision when I talked about it from day one.
And it was interesting. There were some people there, but you would just, I think it would be everybody's hope to win a championship and there's a full house, right. Not, 200 or 300 people. But nonetheless, they got the win, and it was a trying year for everybody. And in some ways, when I think back to what all we went through, it's probably amazing we played as many games as we did.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, some of the highlights for Michigan State and Michigan in this rival matchup. Well, up next here on The Sports Life, we're going to talk to a couple of guys who have played in this game at a very high level. It's all coming up in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AmVets members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AmVets posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AmVets by joining today at amvets.org.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, this week on the Sports Life, we're saluting the basketball rivalry between Michigan State and Michigan. And now we're going to visit with a couple of guys that have played in this game, the Michigan State game. In one, from the Spartan corner, is Matt Steigenga. He was a star with the Spartans from 1988 to 1992, went on to win an NBA title ring with the Chicago Bulls in 97, and also was a member of a Big Ten championship team. So, Matt, welcome to the show. And my first question is an easy one. How long did it take you to really get with this rivalry?
You know, it's interesting. It took me probably 20 minutes before the game to really then realize, like, wow, this is different. You know, everybody can talk about, you know, what a big game it is and the rivalry and the, you know, the dislike for the other team, but I was oblivious to it. I had never experienced it. But the crowd, when the crowd came into Jenison Fieldhouse, my first game was at Jenison, Michigan, traveled to East Lansing, and it was just a different vibe. There were way more people in Jenison before the game than there had been for any other game. It was louder. And then this is funny, the verbal abuse started from both sides. And of course, it's worse for a Spartan down in Ann Arbor. But yeah, that first game, and right when it started, you know, I knew everyone on Michigan's team. And, you know, they had been friends before that moment. And then after that, especially in the game in that moment, they were no longer friends.
Well, Matt, I think you hit on one of the things that makes this rivalry pretty special, and it's the knowing of each other, right, and the proximity of it. And I think that's one of the unique elements that makes this rivalry one of the best in the Big Ten. But I'm curious, Matt, as you grow up in the state of Michigan and you maybe grow up with the green and white colors, you're a Spartan, there's that little brother banter back and forth. There's all these different elements that for the Michigan State perspective, puts a chip on your shoulder in this rivalry.
It definitely can. Yeah, you try to do your best to overlook it, but it's certainly in the back of your mind. The little brother comments were post my playing days, but as a alum, as someone involved in the program, yeah, I mean it truly does bother me, and I think Michigan State wasn't one of the original 10, so Michigan loves to maybe hold that over our heads a little bit, and a lot of little things, but at the end of the day, the rivalry is a great one. There are wins on both sides. There's a lot of bragging rights on both sides, and that's what a rivalry should be. And go back to when you the beginning of your question. When I played, a lot of guys on both rosters. I would say 80 to 90% of the rosters were Michigan guys. That's changed, and that's changed. You look at Michigan's roster; there's barely anyone from Michigan. And honestly, for Michigan State, now we are recruiting nationally, so which is a good thing. But I wish to some degree there were some more Michigan guys on both sides of the ledger.
Matt, do you have a fondest memory?
Yeah, winning. That's about it. My sophomore year, we played in East Lansing, and it was the second game. So my freshman year, we lost both games to Michigan, home and away. We started off my sophomore year in Ann Arbor, and Ramil Robinson made a sweeping hook shot over the top of Mike Poplawski and me. I ran and tried to jump over Mike to block it, but he made that shot and winning shot and went running into the tunnel, and that was a crushing defeat. But when they came back to East Lansing, we were on a Big Ten championship run, and we soundly beat that Michigan team, a lot of their players returning from the national championship team. So after that game, the crowd rushed the floor. That was the first time I had experienced that. So that was probably the greatest moment for me in that rivalry.
Well, in all the years since, of course, you've been working with the radio network calling games. Is there any memory from being a broadcaster that stands out at the top of your mind?
It's interesting. The fact that the game this coming up Sunday is the last game of the year. I'll go back to the last time that happened. I mean, that's a memory, that you just can't forget. I think this should be the last game of the year, whether it's in East Lansing or Ann Arbor, and I hope the Big Ten makes that an annual tradition. But not that long ago when we beat those guys here on the last day of the season, those are really special.
I wanted to ask you too, because we're talking about some of the unique elements of this rivalry, Matt. I think one of the things that really makes Michigan State and Michigan so unique, besides just being an hour away from each other, just down the road from each other, but it seems to be relevant across all sports. Whether it's football, it's a big deal. Whether it's hockey, it's a big deal. Women's basketball, volleyball, go down the list. I don't think every rivalry necessarily encompasses all sports like this, but you as a Spartan alum, you check in on all the other sports too, just to see, even if it's a team maybe you don't follow traditionally, when it's Michigan week and different.
Yeah, and it's not just athletes. It's across the board. It's students who get into this every bit as much as the athletes, especially alumni. So, right, when you're an athlete, you have that added, not pressure, but call it, Tom Izzo talked about it, you have that opportunity to represent your school. And there's no other game, there's no other team other than the rivals down the road that you want to win and beat. It's a date that is circled on the calendar when the schedules come out. So it is that big for everybody.
Matt, let me ask you this. There are some that would argue that the Ohio State-Michigan football game is a bigger deal than the Michigan State-Michigan football game. So having said that, I get the sense that the Michigan State-Michigan basketball game is way bigger than when they go to Columbus. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. A lot of things that I've been reading, and I believe that to be true, is, this basketball rivalry is better for the sport than what that football rivalry is to football. So and I believe that when both Michigan and Michigan State are doing great in basketball, this is a massive rivalry, and especially for a year like this when it's, national implications. Yeah, I'm on board with that thinking, and without a doubt, it's a special event.
Well, from a Spartan standpoint, how cool would it be for the players on this year's team to have senior day and maybe be Big Ten champs against Michigan?
It would be awesome, wouldn't it? I mean, it'll be a special day. I can't wait for Sunday to get here. Obviously, we have one other game to play before we get there, but it reminds me of when I was a sophomore. I mentioned that championship run that we had. We had the opportunity to play the team, Purdue, that had a chance to get a share of the title. And it was a winner-take-all kind of scenario. We had a share of the title, but for them, they were desperate to get a piece of that title. And we won on that last-second shot by Dwayne Stevens. This has all the makings for that kind of a game.
Well, as always, Matt, appreciate it. I know I'm going to see you soon.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Well, from that conversation we just had with Matt Steigenga, we're now going to move over to Terry Mills, who had a great career at the University of Michigan. Terry, by the way, was part of their national championship team in 1989, was a first-round NBA pick in 1990, and he currently is a member of their broadcast crew. He's on the Michigan Radio Network. So, Terry, welcome into our show, and I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Matt. How long did it take you to get into the spirit of this rivalry?
Well, considering myself being a local kid, it took me no time. I think it started out probably with your siblings, with family. I had an aunt that went to Michigan State. I had cousins that went to Michigan State. So the rivalry pretty much started, amongst the family members. So I do believe that a lot of that has to come from local kids. I think that's where that fire basically comes from. Back when I played at Michigan, it was myself, Lloyd Vaught, Mark Hughes, Glenn Rice. So all of us pretty much knew about that. That was kind of instilled in us.
Terry, I'm curious if you could take us through the evolution of the rivalry, because when you look at the eras of both of these programs, I mean, you reference back when you played, and for Michigan State, those were Judd Heathcote days. And now, of course, we know what Tom Izzo's done with Michigan State. For Michigan, you had the Fab Five come in later on. You've had the John Beilein era. All sorts of different periods of relevancy. How has that evolved this rivalry?
Man, I tell you what, it's been some excellent teams, on both sides. So you talk about different eras of, I played when Coach Judd Heathcote was coaching and Coach Tom Izzo was an assistant coach. And, from what Tom has done with the program has just been phenomenal. And, we had Coach John Beilein who did an excellent job that kept that rivalry going. And now we're just trying to ramp it up and get it going again with Dusty May coming in right now.
I was curious, and I ask you this when we asked Matt Steigenga this. There's obviously the Michigan-Ohio State football rivalry, which is a big deal. But there's a part of me, Terry, that thinks that the Michigan State basketball rivalry is a little bigger than with the Buckeyes. Is that fair?
That is very fair. I would say that. I know that they try to say, or I do hear that, the Ohio State-Michigan basketball is a big rivalry. I think it's bigger as far as football, because that's why they call it the game. But with basketball, I think the biggest rivalry is Michigan State. I think that's fair for you to say that. I've played in it, and I know for sure that that's what that is.
Well, and Terry, I got to ask you, because we've dove into the MSU perspective a little bit. I mean, we talk about that part of this rivalry. I think that's what makes this such a unique and maybe the greatest rivalry really in the Big Ten, because it doesn't matter what sport it is. And I don't know that there's another rivalry that matters quite the same when it comes to football, hockey, men's basketball, women's basketball, gymnastics, volleyball, you name it. Like this always matters to both of these schools.
Yes, it does. I mean, you can sense it, from a fan base standpoint. I can tell when Michigan State is doing good. I got neighbors who are Wolverines all around me. Didn't know I had State fans around me until you guys started winning and doing a whole lot of good things up there. And now all of a sudden I see their flags flying. It means a lot. I think it's the greatest rivalry in college basketball, in my opinion. I know they'll say Duke, North Carolina. Well, hey, I haven't played in it. I've watched it, and I understand what their fan base is, but nothing compares, in my opinion, to the Michigan State rivalry.
Well, when you were playing in Michigan, Terry, obviously you guys won a lot of big games, including the national championship in '89. But as you look at fond memories in this rivalry, do you have one or two that just stands out to you?
No, not necessarily. I had a lot of success, I guess, against Michigan State. I think I was 5-1 against State. Nothing really stands out. I just think that, when you talk about that rivalry, you like to play against guys that you actually know. I was good friends with Mark Montgomery. I knew Steve Smith. And a lot of that rivalry came because you played against those guys in the summertime, where you play pickup basketball, whether it be St. Cecilia or, wherever they were playing pickup at. So you would see a lot of those guys locally. So that made it a very intense type of rivalry because, you could get into a little trash talking, if you will, because, they're local guys that you played against throughout the summer.
Well, Terry, that kind of keeps inspiring me to ask this question again, too, because, you talk about the familiarity across lines that both teams have. When we talk about what makes this rivalry so unique and so special, it's just 64 miles in between these two universities, these two institutions. The proximity of it, knowing each other and being so close, you reference what you see in the neighborhood. The proximity of it seems to be a game changer in how special the rivalry is.
It is. It's a rivalry. It's a respectful rivalry. You don't have any disrespect of your opponent. I think that they respect us and we respect them. And hey, we're going to go out and compete. I just look at the last game that you guys won up in Ann Arbor. I think from a emotional, mental standpoint, I think it took toll on both teams. We had to bounce back against Rutgers, and we were kind of, I think, mentally kind of beat up, and then you guys go to Maryland and win, and I kind of felt you guys were kind of beat up, I said Rutgers, I meant Nebraska, because we played them, and you could just see the toll. We scored 49 points, and then I think Coach Izzo referenced that that's probably one of the worst games that he's seen from an offensive standpoint. And then I watched you guys' game against Maryland, and I think we might have outscored you in the first half. So I think that was just kind of a mentally draining game.
Well, Terry, as always, we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys for having me on, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Well, there you go. Some of the thoughts of Terry Mills and also Matt Steigenga. A couple of guys that played in this rival game between Michigan State and Michigan. And I should also mention Matt is a member of the Michigan State Radio Network. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, our parting shots in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender.
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And we've had a fun show this week. Talk some hoops, getting ready for postseason, put a cap a little bit on the regular season. And now it is time for the parting shots.
That's right. And by the way, if you missed any of that, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter or X is where you can find us. That's again at Sports Life Now. For my parting shot, I'm actually going to head over to the ice and give a hat tip, a salute to Notre Dame head hockey coach Jeff Jackson. Jeff Jackson, of course, was a Michigan State alum. He spent a long time coaching. He actually won 3 national championships with Lake Superior State, once as an assistant, 2 as the head man there. And then he left and became the first ever coach of the national development team that was founded here in the state of Michigan. And then he's coached for more than a couple of decades now for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is it for him. He announced before the season that this was going to be his final year. So as he gets into the Big Ten tournament, they take on Minnesota in the first weekend. Maybe they can win a best-of-3 series, but certainly you hope they pick off one game because Jeff Jackson has 599 career wins. How great would it be to at least get to 600 for the send-off? But a remarkable career and one of the legends of the game. A big hat tip to Jeff Jackson.
And I would agree. 600 sounds so much better than 599, doesn't it? Well, my parting shot is things I'm hopeful and looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the postseason playing basketball because I think it's really going to be exciting. I'm grateful for the regular season in Big Ten men's basketball we had because it was very interesting. And I'm looking forward to see what we do about 2 things, Dalton. Number 1, do we make any adjustments to the new Big Ten in terms of scheduling with the 18 members? And the other one is, I think most people who pay attention agree that those who officiate on the men's side maybe work too many games, and maybe there's an adjustment there, that they work less games, maybe pay them some more, but make some kind of an adjustment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there, and I think I'm in tune with everybody else. This ought to be a great postseason for sure. And with that, that is a wrap for our show for this week. We should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. And as always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler and assisted by Owen Cronin. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.